Welcome to the first episode of the Fenway Rundown podcast for this week. Hope you all had a terrific Thanksgiving and long holiday weekend. I'm Sean McAdam. Chris Cotillo, my usual co host, is off for a couple of days, so I'm kind of solo for this episode, but I'll be joined by a special guest in just a few minutes. And a reminder that in this busy time, as we get closer to the winter meetings and the Hot Stove League is percolating, that the best way to keep current on all Red Sox news is the Red Sox Fenway Rundown Insider Text Program, which you can join by texting the word join to 617-751-6257. Then click on the link to subscribe. And that will give you a free 14-day trial period, after which you'll be charged $4.99 per month. Our guest today is Major League Baseball broadcaster Dave Sims. It's the first episode this week of the Fenway Rundown. My usual co-host Chris Cotillo is off, but I am happy to be joined with terrific play-by-play announcer and a good friend Dave Sims, who recently switched jobs and coasts and everything else, going from an 18-year stay with the Seattle Mariners to the new radio voice of the New York Yankees. So belated congratulations, Dave. Belated happy Thanksgiving, and great to have you.
Thanks on all counts, Sean. Pleasure to be with you. This has been, let's see, things got nuts on about the 14th of November.
Yeah.
So it's been a whirlwind. I think I finally finished answering, as Letterman said, the voluminous emails, uh, answering, and it got to a point where I was just putting a thumbs up, like thank you, and just keep moving. There was so much of it. It's been great.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are happy for you, me included. Um,
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about how that came about. As I said, you were the mostly TV, occasional radio voice of the Mariners in the Pacific Northwest for 18 years. Was this on your list of to do things to get back home, to consolidate, to work on the East Coast? How did it happen?
Well, the fact that John Sterling retired,
Right.
uh, and it was the biggest factor. And John had a fabulous run as a radio voice of the Yankees, working with Susan Waldman. Just a great run, great career. And he started the season, then he did a oops, my bad. I shouldn't have started the season. I should have stayed retired. Should have announced my retirement in spring training and not done it. All right, so he does that, and there had been conversations over the years with the people in charge. I expressed interest with, hey, if anything ever to happen, opening, yada yada yada, and they reached out to me, probably. Matter of fact, they did first. So anyway, I spoke to some people in the decision makers a couple 3 days before before the Mariners came to play the Yankees in May, and they said no decision is going to be made till after the season. And I get a call, hey, let's do this. And so we're putting finishing touches on everything. It's pretty exciting, pretty exciting.
I'm sure. Was there, in addition to kind of a lifestyle thing, because you were splitting time between living in Seattle half the year for the baseball season and then moving back to your New York home for the other half? Was it lifestyle? Was it, this is something I always wanted to do? You're an East Coast guy. You grew up in Philadelphia. What was behind the motivation for you?
Well, at this stage of my career, this stage of my life, this opportunity, I mean, this is a last chance gulch, and it was well worth taking the shot. And if this is my last broadcasting job, or at least play-by-play job, so be it. And to be with this, I know I'm speaking to folks who are Red Sox fans and people in New England. There's some Yankee fans up there, but it's an undeniable fact. 41 pennants, 27 World Series, a multitude of Hall of Famers, a lot of love, a lot of hate for the Oregon, for the name brand. But I looked at it this way. It's again, last chance. It's New York. I think of Mr. Sinatra's song. I'm home, close to the family and friends. And not that I didn't have friends out in the Pacific Northwest. but I want to say I want to prove myself that I can make it here, and it's come full circle. As you know, I still have ink in my blood. I was a two-summer intern at the Philadelphia Inquirer, 7 years full time at the New York Daily News before I got into broadcasting. So this is a big deal. It
Yeah.
really is.
Well, it's great. And I know a lot of people are happy that you're back here, that we get to see you 4 times a year instead of twice.
Yeah,
And
right.
you
Yeah,
get to
thanks.
rediscover all the driving that happens when you have spring training in Florida rather than Arizona. That will be a
Yeah.
rude awakening. I'm just giving you a heads up right
Oh,
now.
I'm telling you, when all the writers would come to Arizona, they always say, "Man, we're glad we're here. We're just dying from being over." I remember I'd seen you down there, and
Yeah.
in Arizona, the Mariners in Peoria, Arizona, northwest suburb of Phoenix, but you can get to what to 14 other teams inside an hour.
Yep.
On a bad day, it's 90 minutes.
Right.
Big deal, you know? So, let me, that's my son getting back to me. I'll call you back. Sorry about that, Sean. I thought I turned everything off. Vagaries of our new digital technology. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. In Seattle, we did all the games on radio. If we do 30 games, 20 of them were probably live. Others were tape delayed. The Yankees, as far as I know at this moment, I think we're doing 6 or 7 games on radio live. So that'll be a little bit different because it's a whole way of life, being embedded, if you will,
Yep.
with the ball club for 30 days. Man, you get to learn a lot over the course of time. And I know how to make up for lost time, and I'll do I'll get after it when I'm down there. And then what I don't the guys I don't really get a chance to have a sit down with in spring training, I'll make up for it in the first month.
Yep. Are you, and as a guy who grew up in the Northeast and worked in Philly, worked in New York, uh, did you miss the intensity that comes with being on the East Coast in sports? And look, I think Seattle's a terrific sports town. They support the Seahawks. The Mariners draw great numbers out there. They
Mhm.
lost the Sonics, of course, but it's a good sports market. But there isn't that intensity that you find in Philly,
Yeah.
Boston, and New York. It
Oh,
what was part of that allure, was part of that allure, what motivated you to come back and do this? Did you
I
miss
didn't.
that?
I didn't have to really think about it because I know it exists, and I know when every time we'd come east, that it's a different buzz in the Northeast I-95 Northeast corridor from DC to Boston, and like this time of year, you're really going to love your indoor sports. There's people that do skiing, but not a lot, and not as much as because we're so densely populated.
Yep.
But the passion here is phenomenal when you turn into sports radio. DC, go right up the line. DC, Baltimore, Philly, New York, Boston, Providence, Boston. And it means so much to so many people and for generations. And there's just like in Seattle, during the summer when the weather is second only maybe to San Diego in the lower 48. I mean, you got you can go up in the mountains, you can go out in the water, you can all kinds of stuff. Here, man, it's like, and people do go to the shore, yada, 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 all that stuff. But there's something in the bones, there's something in the water here in this part of the country where the caring is just off the chart. It is just so important. It's lifeblood. It's like breathing. And I won't, that didn't factor in to my decision, but I know it exists. I mean, I'm back in familiar air.
Yep. You talked about the tradition behind the Yankees and the pennants in the World Series and the Hall of Famers, but there is also, you're stepping into some big shoes, and not just John's. When you think about the history of Yankee broadcasters going back to Mel Allen, moving on to Frank Messer and Bill White and Phil Rizzuto, and
Kenny
John, of
Singleton,
course. Right.
John. Yeah.
What's that like for you? Are you cognizant of that as you step into this job?
Yeah, but I'm not letting it. I'm not overwhelmed by it. I mean, I think that when I went to Seattle in '07, Dave Niehaus was winding down his career, so I basically was brought in as heir apparent to him. And unfortunately, he died in 2010, and I took over full time 9 innings TV, and then we started breaking it up about let's see, in about the 15 or 16 season. Started to do more, split more time, get more time on radio, which really proved to be beneficial. Big part of helping me get this job because it's two different disciplines, as you know. Doing baseball or anything on TV, and then compared to doing it on radio. But no, I don't let that stuff intimidate me. I'm awed by the fact that it's been pointed out to a bunch of people. It says, they list, Red Barber, Mel Allen, Scooter, the guys you mentioned, and now your name is on that list. That's pretty daunting when I read it, but I'm not hung up on it.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it. And here's the other thing too. You got to, out of that group, um, not only Yankee history, but in the history of broadcasting. I mean, I'm one of the few African Americans ever do this. And that probably blows my mind more than anything. I mean, the Yankees, Bill White was the first African American that I saw doing play-by-play.
Hmm.
And then, Paul Olden did 2 years of TV here, won an Emmy one year. Ken Singleton had a great run in Montreal and an even better run here in New York. Um, I think Billy Sample did 1 year, and that's it. And then in baseball now, the two lead broadcasters on radio for a major league team, two are black, me and Robert Ford in Houston, and John Schifrin does the White Sox TV in
Right.
Chicago. That's it. So when you look at the history of major league broadcasting, going back to what 1922, 23 when it all started on radio, and then 47 when it really started to take off in TV. If you do a count, you'll be lucky to get to. I don't think you get to a dozen names.
Right.
Be lucky to get to 8 or 9.
Let's turn our focus away from broadcasting for a minute and onto baseball and the Hot Stove League.
Yep.
Um, Coming from Seattle, Red Sox fans have eyed that Mariners rotation with more than a little bit of envy for the last couple of years. Jerry DiPoto, the general manager or president of baseball ops, who you know very well, has said he is not going to deal from that stacked deck to get the bat that he needs. Do you believe him? Could that
Oh,
happen still?
oh, I believe him. He's not trading those guys. He loves those. He loves that
Even if you move
five.
on from beyond like Gilbert and Kirby, you don't think Miller or Wu would?
As we speak, I think he's not going to do it. You know full well as much as I do. He's got that itchy trigger finger. And so I would, I could be surprised. Let me phrase this right. Um, I could be surprised down the road. Okay. If it gets to a situation where as they analyze what they have, and it's not a potent offensive team by any stretch. So many guys, and I will say this in their defense, so many guys who had, maybe better than average batting averages, boy, they underperformed woefully last year. I think the last month, the Mariners rallied to finish, I think, at 217, tied with the White Sox for 32nd in Major League Baseball,
Hmm.
or 30th in baseball. What do we? We got 32 teams, right? Yeah, we got 32 teams. Um, yeah, there's some work to do. There really is some work to do. They need and Jerry called to congratulate me the other day. I said, how you looking? Second base and third base. He said, got needs. I need I prefer to get a right hand batter to play first base, to platoon with Luke Raley. Now, you look at the pitching. You got now I'm blanking. I'm so locked into the Yankees now. But
Yeah,
you
you
got
got Castillo, you got
Castillo, you got
Gilbert,
Gilbert, you
Kir-
got
Kirby,
Kirby, and you got Brian Wu and whom I left somebody
Bryce
out,
Miller.
and Bryce Miller. That's a great group.
Yeah.
Those guys, and the only guy that didn't make all of his starts was Wu, but Wu at one point was the best guy on the staff. He had some run in there this past season that was tremendous. And again, missed by a game, missed the playoffs by a game. It's and everybody I spoke to, and I tell the story all the time, coming down the last 8 weeks, every coach, manager and top players said, "Man, we don't want to face you guys in the playoffs." No, that pitch staff. You kidding me?
Yeah.
No chance. That could have they Mariners could have really done some really turned in some good work this year had they got to the playoffs with that pitching.
Yeah, if they had just gotten in, they would have been a very dangerous out. I don't think there's any
No
question
doubt.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Closer to home and more presently, everybody is awaiting the Juan Soto decision. Red Sox in, Mets in, Yankees in, Blue Jays in, Dodgers lurking, maybe. What do you hear? What do you think happens here?
Well, I know one thing. Once he makes the move, everything else will start to flow. Um, I just hope that if the Yankees don't get him, I hope that plan B is really good. And I would think it would be because you got to protect yourself. Um, I know that they have an eye on they want to, as somebody told me, a big boy pitcher, and certainly and somebody maybe can play center field because they really want to get Judge back into right field so they don't
Yep.
wear him out. So that all makes sense, but it's all dependent on what happens. And if they do sign Soto, um, you're still going to be curious to see what they do in center field. Um, Trent Grisham can cover it, but he's not hit. Um, and again, you just can't put Judge out there for 150 games and expect him to have any juice left in September. You don't want to do that. And the kid's having a great career, so we're going to find out. And they probably got some holes they'd like to shore up in the pitching side too.
What's it like watching the because this has not happened a whole lot. What's it like watching the Mets and Yankees battling over a free agent? It kind of happened with Carlos Beltran, 10 years or so ago. But it wasn't quite at that fever pitch. Now you've
Not
got
like
Steve.
this.
Yeah. Now you've got Steve Cohen who can go toe to toe with anybody financially in the game. He's
Without a
probably
doubt.
the most wealthy owner in the sport. He has his eyes on a guy and doesn't seem to be the kind of guy who's going to let him get away or be outbid there.
Yeah.
What's that atmosphere like in New York with both teams going for the same star?
Super competitive. And then you hear reports that Steve Cohen would go 50 mil, as in 50 M, beyond whatever the last offer is going to be. That is daunting to say the least. And they still, even if they get Soto, they still have pitching issues they have to deal with. So, it's interesting. You tune into the talk shows and they're talking about he's not a great defender. All I know is the dude's on base all the time. Takes his walks, he can hit. He hits for power. He hits for average. Uh, he can sort of try to hide. I mean, I don't think he's a butcher in the outfield. I mean, he's not. This is going way back. He's not Carl Furillo. You know what I mean? He's not Roger Maris out there. He's not Dewey Evans out there. But I mean, he can hold his own. But you want him for his bat. And the other thing I mentioned to some people when I was up there for game 2 of the Cleveland series. He's not going to be in a position where he has somebody like Judge protecting him behind. I mean, where else is he going to find something like that? Dodgers, like you mentioned, lurking that primo. And it seems like they as much as we talk about Cohen wanting to go 50 mil more than whatever the offer is, the Dodgers pretty much, they've spent a lot of money already. And I know a lot of it's deferred. That would not be, I wouldn't say that would be stunning if they were to get him. I mean, that would really be crazy. And it does open up the possibility if they were to sign him. Teoscar Hernandez is a free agent. I know he's like 34, 35, but he had a hell of a year. He was what,
Mhm.
30 and 100. So, and his right field, his abilities in right field, I saw it for 1 year in Seattle. Again, I didn't, people, he's a butcher, he can't play. I've seen a hell of a lot worse. Come on. So, I mean, he's a dependable bat. I mean, yeah, he's going to strike out like a lot of sluggers do, but that's a good bat, a good power bat to have in your lineup.
Yeah, and I suspect of the teams who perhaps miss out on Soto, that Teoscar is going to be plan B for a lot of them, and there could be a bidding war there for everybody who loses out on Soto.
How about Santander too? I mean,
Yeah,
what he had
switch
40
hitter
plus.
with 44.
Yeah, I mean, come on. That's do you want that kind of stick? A switch hitter with 44 home runs? And the other guy I threw out there and I thought that would be a really good ad for the Yankees is Christian Walker. I know he's 34, but he's consistent. good, very good glove at first. And he's even at this stage in his career, he's still probably a 25 and 95 guy.
David, are you looking forward to, even in a broadcaster sense, being part of the Red Sox Yankee rivalry, which you sort of have
Yeah.
observed from sometimes up close and sometimes from afar, but
Yeah.
it's different. I mean, that rivalry, even though it's cooled in recent years, there was the wild card game in 21, the 2018 wild card round, and of course, going back to '03 and '04, who can forget those
Right.
showdowns?
Yeah.
But is that something that you're looking forward to, sort of, you know, being someone who chronicles that rivalry from the booth and following the teams?
Yeah, that's all part of the all part parcel of being here and being with the Yankees to get all of that. And certainly um that's the reality. That's some of the romance of baseball. It's one of the realities of baseball. The Yankees, Red Sox. Hey, man. The one good thing I will say, this age of pitch clock, I don't have to worry about two. I know their games tend to be longer, but it's at least not the 4:30 that for 9 innings that we used to
Yeah,
get. So
we can deal with 320. It's the
yeah,
430 we don't need
right. It's the
anymore.
4:30 kills you, but you love the juice in both ballparks. I mean, that's one of those things. You wake up, you're having your morning coffee, you go for your morning walk, and you pick up a paper, you're reading your phone and everything, and you can feel the sizzle. You can feel the sizzle at 8 o'clock in the morning. Come on, that's good stuff. That's it. And as I used to tell a lot of guys I worked with, hey man, that's entertainment. This is entertainment. This is high end. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
That's exciting, no question about it.
I'm going to assume that you're not going to come up with any trademark home run calls as your predecessor did on the job.
No, I mean that's like if you wanted to follow Chris Berman and doing nicknames. Nah, I don't think that's a good idea. Following John Sterling with nicknames, that's not a good idea. So I got my own little, personal thing. A lot of it. The best part is when they're organic. I mean, something like when Nelson Cruz was with us. Those are 4 great years. I wish they had signed him in about an 8-year deal. But Boomstick Baby came from when Reggie Miller with the Pacers. You remember Bob? Oh God, at the call. I know I was going to do this. Mark Boyle's a play-by-play guy. Slick Leonard would go boom, baby. So then remember down in Texas, you saw the Boomstick, that Gigundo Oscar Mayer type mobile, and so the Boomstick was a $30 hot dog with everything on it, and not, give you indigestion for a week and a half. And his nickname was the Boomstick. And I'm walking in one day and I see that thing. I said, "Ooh, I think I got something." And I tried it with my sons. I went to Nelly. He liked it. And then I'll never forget at the end of his first month regular season in April of, I think it was 15. He goes, "Hey, come here, Dave, come here." And he takes his phone out and he dials it up. Somebody give him a mashup of all the home run. He had hit like 4 or 5 home runs. And he just loved hearing me saying, Nelson Cruz, long drive way back, boom, stick, baby. And you just get hear him, boom, stick, baby. He just turned to me and just like, give me one of those. I was like, so it worked. But that was a one and done for, that 4-year period. I came up with the Hey Now because, as a Sinatra fan, I got The World on a String, which, 1956 recording of the Harold Arlen song. And he, the bang out line is, "Hey now, I'm in love." And that just stuck with me. I grew up in, going to barbershops that were playing jazz or American standards. And my mother and father used to listen to American standards, Frank, Ella, and everybody. So that's always been a big impact on me too. So the Hey Now thing, I didn't get it from Howard. And I really like Howard Stern. I'm not a regular listener. I think he's one of the best interviewers on the planet. I know he does it, and there's been songs, but it works for me. I tried it a couple times and let it rip, and it's become a part of me.
Yeah. Well, Yankee fans are in for a treat. I know many of them are familiar with you. We look forward to seeing you at Fenway a couple of times, and in the Bronx a couple of times, and in Tampa and Fort Myers. Great to have you back on the East Coast. Congrats again, and thanks for joining us, Dave.
Sean, means a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The opportunity to come on with you, and we'll have another lunch where we can violently agree on about 20 different things.
Exactly. Dave Sims. Thanks, Dave.
You bet.
Our thanks again to my good friend Dave Sims for joining us on the Fenway Rundown, first episode of the week. We'll be doing another one later in the week as Chris Cotillo returns, and we'll be previewing the winter meetings and what we might expect in Dallas. But you don't have to wait until then to get all the Red Sox news on Mass Live. You can join the Red Sox Fenway Rundown Insider Text program. Simply text the word join to 617-751-6257. That will get you a free 14-day trial period. After that, we'll charge you $4.99 per month.